Uzi here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that's both fascinating and incredibly disturbing: the top 10 most toxic towns in the United States. These are places where industrial activity, often spanning decades, has left behind a legacy of pollution and human suffering. We're going to take a trip across America exploring the history of these towns, the environmental disasters that struck them, and the ongoing consequences for the people who lived there. It's a story of corporate greed, lax regulations, and the devastating impact these things can have on ordinary people. It's also a stark reminder of the importance of environmental protection and the human cost of neglecting it, so buckle up because we're about to get real. Our journey begins in Picher, Oklahoma, once known as the lead and zinc mining capital of the world. Picher was a booming mining town extracting vast quantities of lead and zinc, but this prosperity came at a hidden cost. Lead mining generates a lot of waste, mountains of it, literally. This waste, contaminated with lead dust, was left in giant piles around the town. The wind carried this toxic dust everywhere, infiltrating homes, schools, and playgrounds. Kids played in the shadow of these contaminated piles, unaware of the danger. Lead poisoning is incredibly dangerous, especially for children. In Picher, the rates of lead poisoning were astronomical. Nearly every child tested had elevated lead levels in their blood. By 2009, the government offered residents buyouts to relocate. Picher, the town Lead built, was essentially abandoned, a ghost town haunted by its toxic past. Picher stands as a stark reminder that economic prosperity should never come at the expense of public health and environmental well-being. Next, we travel west to Hinckley, California, a small desert town that became synonymous with corporate negligence and the fight for environmental justice. This is the story made famous by the film Erin Brockovich. For years, Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, operated a natural gas compressor station near Hinckley. The company used a toxic chemical called hexavalent chromium to prevent rust in their cooling towers. PG&E carelessly dumped wastewater contaminated with this carcinogenic substance into unlined ponds. Over time, this toxic water seeped into the groundwater, poisoning the town's drinking water supply. Erin Brockovich, a legal clerk, took on PG&E and exposed their wrongdoings, leading to a landmark $333 million settlement. The story of Hinckley is a powerful reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, ordinary people can make a difference. It underscores the crucial role of whistleblowers and community activists in exposing environmental injustices and holding corporations responsible. Our next stop is Love Canal, New York, a tragic symbol of chemical waste disposal dangers. In the 1940s, Hooker Chemical dumped over 21,000 tons of toxic waste into an abandoned canal. By the 1950s, homes and a school were built on this toxic site. Rain and construction disturbed the chemicals, contaminating soil and groundwater. Residents noticed strange odors, black goo in basements, and children with chemical burns. Love Canal escalated into a public health crisis. Studies showed high rates of miscarriages, birth defects, and cancer. In 1978, President Carter declared it a federal disaster area. Over 800 families were evacuated. Love Canal became a national symbol of toxic pollution. It led to the creation of the Superfund program. Love Canal's legacy is a reminder of the consequences of irresponsible waste disposal. Our journey now takes us to Centralia, Pennsylvania, a town that has been burning from the inside out for over half a century. Beneath the streets of this once thriving mining town, a fire has been raging in an abandoned coal mine since 1962. The most widely accepted theory is that it started with an attempt to clean up the town dump. A fire was deliberately set in the landfill, igniting a vein of coal beneath the surface. What began as a small, controllable fire quickly grew into an unstoppable inferno, spreading through the network of abandoned mine shafts beneath the town. The ground became hot to the touch. Smoke and toxic fumes seeped through cracks in the pavement, and sinkholes opened up without warning. Despite numerous attempts to extinguish the blaze, the Centralia mine fire continues to burn today. Centralia is a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences that can arise from seemingly innocuous actions. From fire, we move to a different kind of environmental disaster. Times Beach, Missouri was erased by dioxin, a toxic chemical. In the 1970s, the town faced dust control issues. They hired a hauler to spray oil on roads. The oil was contaminated with dioxin. Dioxin is a carcinogen causing severe health issues. The hauler unknowingly obtained toxic waste. In 1982, the EPA revealed the truth. Soil tests showed extreme dioxin levels. The town was evacuated and abandoned. Times Beach underscores the need for strict environmental regulations. Our journey continues to Libby, Montana, a small town nestled in the heart of Big Sky country. For decades, Libby was home to a massive vermiculite mine operated by W.R. Grace & Company. But the vermiculite in Libby was contaminated with a particularly dangerous form of asbestos. Asbestos is a known carcinogen. For years, the mine spewed asbestos-laden dust into the air, blanketing the town. The true extent of the disaster didn't come to light until the late 1990s. The EPA launched an investigation and the findings were shocking. The agency declared Libby a Superfund site, one of the largest cleanup efforts in U.S. history. Our journey takes us next to East Chicago, Indiana, a city grappling with a familiar faux lead contamination. For decades, East Chicago was a hub for steel mills, foundries, and other industrial operations. While these industries provided jobs and economic prosperity, they also left behind a toxic legacy: lead. The most severely affected area was the West Calumet Housing Complex, a public housing project built on the site of a former lead smelter. The soil in the complex was found to contain astronomically high levels of lead, posing a serious health risk to the primarily low-income minority residents who called it home. Children are particularly vulnerable to the neurotoxic effects of lead. The situation in East Chicago drew national attention, highlighting the persistent problem of lead contamination in urban communities across the country. In response to the crisis, the EPA launched a massive cleanup effort, removing contaminated soil and relocating residents of the West Calumet housing complex. The story of East Chicago underscores the importance of environmental justice, ensuring that all communities have access to clean air, water, and soil. Our next stop takes us to Anniston, Alabama, a city grappling with the legacy of one of the most notorious environmental disasters in American history: PCB contamination. For decades, Anniston was home to a Monsanto plant that produced polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, for use in electrical equipment, paints, and other industrial applications. PCBs were later discovered to be highly toxic, linked to cancer, immune system suppression, and a host of other health problems. Monsanto knew about the dangers of PCBs as early as the 1930s, but chose to conceal this information from the public. For years, the Monsanto plant in Anniston released PCBs into the environment, contaminating the soil, water, and air. The contamination was particularly severe in the predominantly black neighborhoods surrounding the plant. Despite knowing the risks, Monsanto continued to operate the plant, prioritizing profits over the health and well-being of the community. The story of Anniston is a chilling example of environmental racism and corporate greed. Our journey takes us back to Oklahoma, this time to Tar Creek, a region scarred by the legacy of lead and zinc mining. For much of the 20th century, the Tar Creek region was a hub for lead and zinc mining. The mining operations generated mountains of toxic chat, a byproduct of the mining process contaminated with lead, zinc, and other heavy metals. Over time, rain and wind eroded these chat piles, carrying the toxic dust into the air, water, and soil. Streams and rivers ran orange with mine runoff, and the ground was littered with lead-contaminated debris. The health consequences for the residents of Tar Creek were devastating. Children suffered from developmental delays, learning disabilities, and a host of other health problems. The Tar Creek area was declared a Superfund site in 1983, but despite decades of cleanup efforts, the region remains heavily contaminated. The story of Tar Creek is a stark reminder of the enduring legacy of mining and the challenges of restoring ecosystems damaged by extractive industries. Our final stop takes us to Hanford, Washington, a place synonymous with the Cold War and its lasting legacy nuclear waste. For decades, Hanford was a key site for the production of plutonium, a key ingredient in nuclear weapons. From the 1940s to the 1980s, the Hanford site produced vast quantities of plutonium for the U.S. nuclear arsenal. The Hanford site generated millions of gallons of radioactive waste, which was stored in underground tanks, dumped into trenches, or released directly into the environment. Over time, these storage methods failed. leaking radioactive waste into the soil and groundwater, contaminating the Columbia River. The Hanford site quickly became the most contaminated nuclear site in the United States. The cleanup effort at Hanford is one of the largest and most complex environmental remediation projects in the world. Billions of dollars have been spent to contain and clean up the radioactive waste, but the task is daunting, and the risks to human health and the environment remain significant. The story of Hanford is a sobering reminder of the enduring legacy of the nuclear age. That was heavy, wasn't it? Taking a look at the most toxic towns in America is a sobering experience, a stark reminder of the human cost of environmental negligence. These stories, as difficult as they are to hear, are crucial to understanding the impact of industrial pollution and the importance of environmental protection. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Let's spread awareness about these important issues and encourage others to learn more about the environment and the impact we have on it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and let's work together to create a healthier, more sustainable future.